Welcome back to Cruder.com. In this next video on conditional formatting, we're going to go into some real-life examples using tables and forms. Right here I have set up a purchasing form. So if you're thinking about in a company, you're always buying things. And then if you're in a big company, you usually issue purchase orders, which is a way for management to manage all of the purchases out there using approvals, which we're showing in this column here. So if I'm going in and I say, hey, this is my initials, I'm making this purchase order for some sanding discs. And yes, they are inventoried items. So therefore I have to say, how many do we have on hand? Because I want to let everyone know that we're running short. We only have 30 and we use, let's just say we use 10 a day. So in 3 days, we're going to be out. That's why we're buying them. And then I'm going to be buying 50 more, and the price each is $3.50. And the multiplication between 50 and $3.50 comes to a total of $175 for this purchase order. Now, right now, it's sitting in this stage or the status of, hey, we're waiting on something. That's why I'm indicating with this icon. And we're waiting on specifically an approval from our manager to say, yep, this is okay to go ahead and issue the purchase order for this amount. Now, once they do, and they put in their initials GKT, then that yellow goes away, and now we have a green status to go ahead and issue the purchase order. Let's undo this for a second though, and let's come back here. If you remember, I said, hey, if it is inventoried, then I need to tell the approver how many are currently on hand. So if I have this blank, Excel's going to show, hey, there needs to be something here before the approval can get done, and that's why it's in status X. Another thing too, I've also set up where if this is an N, so it's not inventoried, but what if I do put in, hey, there is 30 on hand? Well, then there's something wrong there too, because how am I supposed to know how many are on hand if it's not in my inventory system? So it just wouldn't make sense. So I have an error showing up here as well when you typed in too much information. So this cell should really be blank if this is an N. And so all of this is set up with conditional formatting. What's nice though is I've put this within an Excel table so that when I hit tab here, my next line comes in and now I'm ready to enter in my next piece of data. Notice also that this line is entirely yellow saying, hey, you need to fill in some information on all of these cells. So if you continue here, you can see STC and then it goes away and it becomes part of the table at that point. So in the end, you really want to have all green checks and then you'll just have the formatting that's given off by the Excel table naturally, which is this green color. Now, if you see anything other than green, that's all conditional formatting happening in here. So now let's go ahead and figure out how we can set all this up using the conditional formatting. And I've written out down here, if I unhide these rows, the different things that we're trying to accomplish using conditional formatting. So highlight blank cells. So anything that's blank, go ahead and give it a yellow highlight. This whole row should highlight as yellow when there's nothing entered in it. Then depending on if this is a yes or a no, this column may or may not be in error. So we need to reflect if it is an error, we need to turn it this orangey red color. And then finally with this status column, we need to add in these icon sets. So to do that, let's go ahead and delete this from this table, clear the rules from this table. And let's get started with the first one. So right now I'm already selected on the entire table. All we need to do is come in here and say, hey, we want to go ahead and format only cells that contain, and you could say a cell value that equals nothing with a double quotes, or much easier, you could just say, I want to format all blanks and format them with this fill and this border. And let's just say, okay. And now that's perfectly done. The next step we need to do is, depending on if this is a yes or a no, and this one's a little bit more tricky, so we're going to write this one off to the side quickly here. And we're going to say, hey, if D9, and right now I just wrote D9 instead of selecting the table, because if I say equals the table, I'm going to get this table name. And it doesn't always play nicely with conditional formatting. I've had issues with it. I think it's because of these apostrophes and some other of the characters. But in short, it just doesn't read it well. So let's reference it as D9. And then we want to rotate through to say, hey, I want it to specifically look at D9 and I want to flood down the rows. So I'm going to lock it up on the D and leave the 9 relative. And I'm going to say if that equals N, then that should be true, right? So when it equals n, and then also at the same time when the quantity on hand is something. So we don't ever want to see a purchasing person put in that this product is not inventoried, yet it has an inventory balance. That just wouldn't make sense. So at this point, if it does show something, then we want to turn it red. So let's go over here and wrap this with the AND statement. That way we can have not just one logic statement, but we can put in a second one as well. And so for the second one, we're saying, hey, is this one, is that not blank? And to do that, we want to have the not formula first. Then we're going to use the is blank formula. Is this blank here? E9. Notice that I keyed that in instead of clicked on it. And if that is blank, which it is, so that's true, so this whole statement will be true, which means it would get the formatting just like we have here. So condition evaluates to true, the formatting will be applied. I want it formatted only if it is not blank. So that's why we wrapped it with this not formula to switch the signs from being true to false. And then now we can close up the whole and statement. And we get false, and we get false. Let's pop in here real quick though. Let's rotate this through, so lock it up on E, the columns. And let's test it. So let's put in 50 quantity on hand. That then becomes true. It's gonna get the formatting. I think the formula is written correctly, so let's go ahead and test it. Let's pop in here, F2, Control-Shift-Home, Control-C, copy, and select this entire column that we're gonna be applying the formatting to. Come in here to conditionally format, new rule, quickly pop down to formulas, Control V to paste it in. Formatting needs to now have a fill of this orangish red color we'll use, and the border will make it a little bit darker in that same orange category for the top and the bottom border, and hit OK. OK again, and let's test it. So if this equals 50, that's an error. Perfect. Okay, so the thing is that now, if there's nothing in here like it's supposed to be, we don't want to have it saying yellow. We don't want to have anything in there. We want to say, nope, that's fine. So to do that, we want to say, hey, if this is an N and if this is blank without the not, we want it to say true and get a normal formatting in here. So to do that, let's go ahead and copy this formula, copy it, select the entire range, go to conditional formatting, new rule, formulas, Control V, and this one, I don't want to have any formatting set because the table that it's in inherently already has this nice green and white scheme going on for alternating rows. So if I do that and just hit OK, you'll notice, hey, it still didn't do it right. You know, it's still saying yellow. So what's going on? So we need to pop back into conditional formatting, manage my rules, and see what's happening. So the first one that Excel is looking at is this one. It says, hey, if that statement is true, then go ahead and don't give it any formatting. So why in the world is it doing yellow? Well, Excel next looks at this one, says that's not true. But the next one after that, it's for cells containing blank values, which is this one. And so Excel is then applying the yellow to the cell. So here's where this stop if true comes into play. So if this statement is true, do you want Excel to continue looking down to see if any of the other ones are true? Well, no, in this case, I don't want it to look any further. Once this one evaluates as true, then stop, don't go any further. Do not give it the yellow for this column. Let me hit apply. You'll notice that now it's gone. So hit OK. And so now this whole column looks pretty good. It's just missing these icon sets. And so to finish up with these icon sets, this one's pretty basic. We can go in and just say, all right, let's set up conditional formatting for icon sets and put in these indicators. So I'm just going to click on the 3 symbol indicators and notice that the 1s get the X's, the 2s get the exclamation points, and the 3s get the check mark, which means it's done. Let's go in and do some additional adjustments because I don't really want to see the 1, 2, and 3 anymore. I just want to see an icon. And so we can do that by managing the rule and hitting icon sets. And in here, like we've done before, we can say I only want to show the icons here with this checkbox. That's what that does. It'll remove the 1, 2, and 3. And if these are not automatically coming up correctly in your spreadsheet, you can change your formatting to say, hey, show this check icon when the value is greater than or equal to, and this one it says 67%. You can change this to a number and just say if this is greater than or equal to a 3. If you hit tab, you'll see that this now changes to say this second icon when it's less than 3 and greater than or equal to 2. And we'll change that to a number. And actually just switch back, so I'm gonna change that to 2, tab, and then the X when this is less than a 2. So this will be a 1, 2, and a 3. Hit OK, and apply, OK. So that's really all we had to do to set this all up. And actually, I think I missed this one. So this X, this was supposed to turn red when it was missing. So we can make that happen by doing the same sort of statement as up here. So I'm actually gonna copy this, put it down in this row, and pop into it and change it to yes instead of a no. And then is blank should be correct because that's a true statement. And right here, this is an error and it is true. So this is good. We want the formatting to turn it red on this row. And just make sure that you do not copy it from this bottom one because Excel is looking at row 13. And when you go ahead and you're going to paste it in as a formula, you're going to have to make sure that row 13 is the active cell. It's much easier if you start on row 9, the first one. So let's copy this up to the top, hit paste, come back in here, hit Control C to copy it. And then now that's on row 9, now we can start on row 9 and highlight this row and then go into conditional formatting, new rule, go into formulas, Control V, format it just in the past like we did in the nose. We're going to grab this color, put in a border, that same column, a little bit darker of a border, top and bottom. Okay, okay. And it looks like it's acting properly now. Now that's basically all we had to do to set up this worksheet to make it work dynamically. And this is a smart form. When people see that this is set up this way, they're probably going to be thinking, how in the world did you do this? And then I think it's super complex. And really, when you pull it all apart, it's really not that difficult. Yet it does so much for you. It'll keep the integrity of the sheet. It shows you quickly the status of all your purchase orders, and it pops out like a sore thumb all the spots that need to have approvals or where there's an error in there. You can even filter by these icon sets by showing, hey, I only want to see the checked ones, or I only want to see the ones in error. So that way only this one pops up. Now that's the beauty of going through the trouble of setting up a worksheet to look like this.